We are moving to the last part of the lesson, that is the Mughal Empire in 17th century and after. After Aurangzeb or after Shah Jahan, then what happened that we are going to see, or after the major emperors, then what happened to the Mughal emperors that empire that we are going to see. The administration and the military efficiency of the Mughal Empire led to a great economical and commercial prosperity, because they are having very good administrative system that we have seen already, Akbar's policy, and which is followed by Shah Jahan and Jahangir, and they are having good military. That's why the country become very great in economical and commercial status. And the international travelers described as it was the fabled land of wealth, means the land with much of wealth. We can see our economical growth, it is reached to like America, or 50% point, or 24% we develop, that much development we are making. The now present India's development, it is 4.5 or less than that, that is, and before 10 years we can see it reached to 7.5 up to that, and in the time of Mughal emperors it was 24.5, and that much wealthy we was here in India. And that time of 17th century to 19th or 20th century, in the time of British rule, we went down, and again slowly we developed, and now again we come down because of different reasons. We can see later in afterwards. Okay, but the same visitors were also appalled at the state of poverty that exists in the side by side with the great opulence. Means the one side, which part was under the Mughal, that was very prosperous, which rich country or rich part, and other side we can see the poverty or the starvation of the people. Then the inequalities were glaring, and means there was disparity. Some area, means we can see the some area it was very poor, and we can see the poorest people in the society and the richest in the society, like the two group we can see are the inequality between the people, that was very clear in front of other people. Then documents from the 20th century, 12th century of Shah Jahan's reign inform us that the highest ranking Mansardar was only 445 in number out of the total 8,000 Mansardar was in that. The great highest ranking who was getting high amount, that was 445, and this small number was mere 5.6% of the total number of Mansardar. Already 8,000 Mansardar was, when we are taking the percentage wise, we can see it was 5.6%. Then they received 1.6% of total estimate of the revenue, means the revenue maximum it is going to the Mansadar's hands. So the other part of the people, or from whom the governor or the divan was collecting revenue, they become very poor, and the king want to give salary to the troop, means the army people also. So the emperor's money, it is going to the hands of Mansardar and the army. Then Mughal emperor and the Mansardar spent a great deal with of their income on salary and goods. What they made, even we can see the temple or mosque what they made in the time of Mughal emperors, Red Fort or Taj Mahal, like that things. They spent lots of money for making like that things. Sometimes they given us salary, or sometimes they purchased things, very valuable things they purchased and made buildings and other things we can see. This expenditure benefit to the artisans. They got much money to the artisans, as well as peasantry who supplied them with goods and produces, means wheat or like that things. Those who are giving to the king, they was getting better money. But the scale of revenue collection left very little for investment in the hands of the primary producers, the peasants and the artisans. How much the revenue they want to give, they are getting the money to that the things what they are producing, but at the same time they want to give revenue to the king, and from that revenue how much the king was spending for the welfare of this common people, that was very less. And the poorest among them lived from hand to mouth, and they could hardly consider investing in additional resources, tools and supplies to increase productivity. They want to get sometimes the people of the lowest grade, they are having the work, how much they are doing, that was not enough to get their food. That was that much difficult situation they was facing. The wealthier peasantry and the artisans group, the merchants and bankers profited in the economic world. When the travelers they came and they have seen the wealthier people, that is the artisans and peasants, those who are having much land and much production in their hand, as well as the people, those who are standing in between, merchants or traders or business people and bankers, they got money and they become more prosperous in the country. And the people, those who are in downtrodden, those who are having less land or those who are working under the zemindars, they never had a two-time food properly. Then the enormous wealth and resources commanded by Mughal elites made them an extremely powerful group of people in the late 17th century. They were getting enormous wealth from whom they are collecting different types of taxes, and they having many resources, many area under them. Then they looted when they are capturing the area, they used to collect the maximum things, valuable things for the Mughal people. Like that, they become very powerful group in the time of 17th century. As the authority of the Mughal emperor slowly declined, that is common. Some each and every dynasty, those who are coming up slowly, they will go back also. We have seen Delhi Sultanate, like that. Now we are going to see Mughal emperor, how they declined, and his servants emerged as powerful centers of power in the region. Means they made different provinces. That provincial people, they become more powerful, or they started to collect revenue for them. They themselves started to make their own army, so they become very powerful in one by one region. They constituted new dynasties and held command of the province like Hyderabad and Awadh. Two provinces, example, it is given one province, it was Hyderabad, that is in Telangana and Andhra, and then Awadh, it is in UP area. And both provinces, they made their own, they started to say as a new king or new dynasty or new group of kings, like that. Then although they continued to recognize as the Mughal emperor in Delhi as their master, they used to say the master is in Delhi itself. But 18th century, the provinces of the empire had consolidated their independent political entities. Means slowly in 17th century, means when the emperor become the little bit less powerful, up to that time they said our master is there in Delhi itself. Then when they understood that power is not that much with the Mughal emperor, or when they got chance, they said like that we are separate entity, like that they started to say. We can see, we will read that one in chapter 10 again, and coming lessons also related to these two lessons, Delhi Sultanate and Mughal emperor, that we can see many things related to it in coming classes, and how the Ahams coming, joined Rajputas, how they become, all these things we will see in the coming lessons. And now we can see here one box, it is kings and queens. How was the kings and queens of that time? There were several great monarchs, all near to the contemporaries in the different parts of the world in 16th century. Not only here in India, different parts of the world we can see means great powerful monarchs. This includes the rulers of Ottoman Turkey, Sultan Suleiman in 1520, that is in European continent. During his rule, the Ottoman state expanded into Europe, means it is starting from Asia and reached the maximum part of Europe was under him. He seizing Hungary and besieging Austria, and his armies also seized Baghdad and Iraq. Then much of North Africa and all the way to Morocco, and acknowledge Ottoman autonomy. Means when we are going to study the European history in 9th standard, that time we can see 9th and 10th standard, that time you will study again and again about Ottoman Empire from French Revolution to the new states up to that time. 4 to 5 lessons we will hear his name again and again, Ottoman Empire, like that. So we can see he is starting from Russia. He is from Turkey, means it is Russian country, and he is going and making his territory in Europe. Then he is moving to again in Asian, coming to the Middle Asia, then going to African part, even reach to the means Morocco, means the last part of, means in the small islands of Africa, that in there also he reached, means that much a big powerful king he was. And its domination over the eastern Mediterranean brought navy to competition with Spain. Even they are fighting with Spain, and who came and made colonies in other continents. In the Arabian Sea, it challenged the Portuguese. They are going to Europe and fighting with Spain, and in Arabian Sea they are fighting with the Portuguese. And the monarch was given a title Kanuni, means the lawgiver, the person who is giving the law, like that the name given to him, because of the large number of regulations passed during his time, his reign. In the time of his rule, he passed many laws related to different things, how to sea route and everything he made. That's why we are calling him a lawgiver. And there was aim to standardize administrative procedures throughout the expanding domains of the empire, especially to protect the peasantry from forced labor and extraordinary tax. What he done, he made a standardized administration procedure for what, wherever he made his land, in that he want to protect the area where he captured. In that area he want to do the proper administration. At the same time he want to make the peasantry be means protected one. No one should not exploit them. Then forced labor, no one should not ask the people, those who are landless, to bonded labor or slavery. Then extraordinary taxes, they should not collect any extraordinary taxes. Here we was paying taxes very in high taxes, but in the Ottoman Empire there was give the permission to collect very less tax only. Later in the 17th century, when the public order declined, the Ottoman domain and the reign of Suleiman Kunani was remembered as the period of ideal governance. And when the Ottoman time over, the Ottoman Empire also become decline, and that time afterwards we can see it was the time of ideal governance, like that people later they understood. In the time of Ottoman Empire, even though he captured many places, but he made everything in proper way, proper guidance, proper administration, proper tax, everything he given, and he never allowed the people to make the farmers to be suffer much, and forced labor should not be, means there was no slaves under Ottoman Empire. Then when we are seeing the other European countries like France, Spain, England, like that countries, they was make use all the slavery for trade purpose, for plantation purpose, like that things we can see. Then even here in India they used all these things. Then find out more about Akbar and other contemporaries, the rulers of England, Queen Elizabeth, and Safavid, ruler of Iran, then Shah Abbas, then and the more controversial Russian rulers, that is the Tsars Ivan IV, and like that different people you want to find out details about. One example given here, Ottoman Empire, like the different details you want to find out. So by this we are completing the lesson. You should read the lesson very carefully. Thank you. Have a nice day.